And a Fox News alert is we are learning precious little more about a possible active shooter in El Paso, Texas.
At approximately 10:30 a.m. on the morning of August 3rd, 2019, a 21-year-old by the name of Patrick Wood Crusius from Allen, Texas, drove to a Walmart Supercenter near the Cielo Vista Mall on the east side of El Paso and killed 22 innocent people and injured 24 others with a WASR-10 semi-automatic rifle, the civilian variant of the AK-47. This was the deadliest mass shooting in the United States in 2019 to date, and the seventh deadliest shooting since 1949. The media has been reporting that the shooter was a white nationalist who complained about the Hispanic invasion of Texas. Now, while all that information is true, the purpose of this video is to give a non-biased, in-depth look into what factors would lead someone into committing such a horrific act. It's too easy to explain his actions by calling him a terrorist or white supremacist, since there are many more things to explain as to what would cause someone to develop such a skewed way of thinking. Welcome to my new channel, and I'm your host CJ, and I have been investigating active shooter incidents since 2013. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and while I was in the Corps, I had the opportunity to work as a military police officer where I was trained in active shooter. This is when I first became interested in the topic. And while I was trained extensively in active shooter response, it bothered me that in our training that no one ever explained as to what would cause a person to commit such a horrific act. The purposes of this video is to do just that. My main goal for this video is to give you a better understanding as to what would cause someone to commit a mass shooting. To accomplish this, we are going to take an in-depth look into the shooter's history and the major events leading up to the shooting. Ever since the shooting have occurred, I have gathered as much information as I could from all parts of the web, to include social media, news reports, first-hand accounts, and even the dark web, so I could paint a complete picture of the events that led up to the shooting. First, we are going to look into the shooter's family history and his past. Then we are going to do an analysis of his manifesto and his ideals and how it compares to other individuals that have committed a similar act. Finally, we are going to look into what steps he took to prepare for the shooting. On August 27, 1998, John Brian Crusius and Laura Lynn Brown Crusius gave birth to Patrick Wood Crusius. His father, who was 63 years old, is a licensed professional counselor who wrote a memoir about his 40-year addiction to drugs and alcohol. According to his writings, he practices a unique synthesis of traditional talk therapy with multiple energy modalities. In November 2013, he began Infused Begin Recovery Therapy. This protocol infuses spiritual principles, sound healing, guided meditation, life force energy, and other eclectic methods with traditional talk therapy. His approach is specifically designed to discover and transcend the set of limited beliefs that control a client's thoughts, feelings, and actions. He also describes his experience of other dimensions of existence. His mother, Lori, is 51 years old and has been a registered nurse in Texas since 1990. At one point in 2013, when Patrick Crusius was enrolled at Liberty High School, Lori taught health sciences. However, she resigned from her teaching position in June of 2014 to return to nursing, and her son ultimately enrolled at Plano Senior High School. His parents got divorced in 2011, and several reports have been made that it was mainly due to his father's drug and drinking problems, but that cannot be known for sure. He has an older half-brother by the name of Brian Blake Crusius, and he has a twin sister named Emily. For some time he lived with his mother in a nice house in Allen, Texas, a suburban community of Dallas. He later moved in with his grandparents while attending college, but have since moved to an unknown location 6 weeks prior to the shooting. Neighbors of Patrick described him as strange and off. He was once seen as a child playing outside with an axe. They recalled that the suspect often gave terse yes or no answers and was often late for school because the clothes that he wore did not feel right on him. In addition, they said the family rarely took vacation because the boy struggled with being in the car for long periods of time. Lee Ann Lacasio, another neighbor, said Crusius was an extreme loner who always sat alone on the bus in junior high school and high school. He spoke negatively of other kids who played sports or joined the school band. She described Crusius as very much a loner, very standoffish, and someone who didn't interact with a whole lot of anyone. In 2013, Crusius attended Liberty High School in Frisco, but later transferred to Plano High School, where he graduated in 2017. In the 2017 Plano Senior High School yearbook, there is a photo of Crusius in which he appears to be in a crime investigation class. The caption of the photo claimed that he was fascinated with digging into crime data, and it also contained a quote from him that said, "It is interesting to learn about how the world of law enforcement works." I have found several comments from his classmates and friends while in school. One classmate, Shakira, said he was interested in conservative politics and would sometimes get into political arguments. He was sometimes part of a small cluster of students who sat outside the library at lunch discussing anime or politics. He sometimes abruptly shifted the conversation, she said, to ask her views about the Second Amendment, white supremacy, or police brutality. This was the first sign that I found that he had an interest in white supremacy. She also stated that he could not wait to buy a gun. However, she added the questions did not seem hateful or racist at the time, only odd. Another classmate and neighbor, named Tony Licasio, walked to school regular with Crusius and his sister. Tony Licasio said Patrick Crusius only walked ahead of him or behind him, never interacting and always keeping to himself. Crusius liked animals and kept pet snakes. He wouldn't talk to people, Tony Licasio said. No one really knew him. As a major addition, Allison Pettit, a classmate, said she saw Crusius push around the hallways and cussed out by some Spanish-speaking kids. She said, he started getting extra uncomfortable close to the tip of junior year. He started wearing a trench coat to school and changing, becoming antisocial and withdrawn. He started getting more depressed closer to the end of junior year. During his time in high school, there were a few instances where he had contact with the police. In 2014, Crusius was reported as a runaway, but he later returned home within 30 minutes. In 2016, he was on a school bus during an accident. Finally, in March of this year, he called 911 to report a residential alarm at his grandparents' house that turned out to be false, but no further action was taken by the police. After graduating high school, Patrick attended Colon College from fall 2017 to spring 2019, according to the school. Colon College mainly offers associate degrees, but in 2019, for the first time, the college offers a bachelor's program in cybersecurity and nursing. It is not known at this time what Patrick was studying. I found it extremely difficult to find any detailed information regarding Patrick's past, so the majority of information I found was from witnesses that came forward after the shooting. When I first heard of the shooting, about 20 minutes after it occurred, I began to search for any information I could find on the shooter, who is not yet officially identified. However, a police officer on the scene took a picture of him in the back of a patrol car and sent it to a reporter with his basic info. She in turn posted it to Twitter, but I wasn't sure if it was true. I began to search social media and the web for any information I could find, and while I was researching, I watched page by page of his information get taken offline. However, I was able to make some archives of the pages that before they were taken down. Patrick Crusius had several social media accounts to include a Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. His Facebook page was removed within minutes of the shooting, but I gathered everything I could before it was removed. On his Facebook account, he had only 3 friends that were visible. One of them was his sister and her African-American boyfriend, and a female that is pictured in front of the Wailing Wall of Israel. The account only had one photo that seemed to be older, and there were no further posts or details about him. On his now suspended Twitter account that was created in October of 2016, he was slightly more active. He had a Twitter handle named Outsider609. He had 29 followers and he was following 26 accounts, but this data could be skewed because people started to follow him directly after the shooting. His last post was made in April 2017, and it was a retweet thanking Bill O'Reilly, a former Fox News commentator, for causing decades of liberal tears. In another post, he shared a survey in which asked, "What is the best way to secure our country?" With that survey, he wrote, "Build that wall is the best way that POTUS has worked to secure our country so far." He had also once replied to someone saying, "What are you, expletive, gay or something?" After reviewing this account, it becomes clear that he was a Trump supporter with Republican views. On his LinkedIn account, his bio states, "I'm not really motivated to do anything more than what's necessary to get by. Working in general sucks, but I guess a career in software development suits me well. I spend about 8 hours every day on the computer, so that counts towards technology experience, I guess. Pretty much gonna see what technology careers present themselves to me. Go with the wind. On this account, Crusius said he worked part-time as a bagger at Market Street, a grocery store in Allen, Texas in 2015, but quit because he had no way to get there living many miles away. However, Terry Alsop, the store manager, said that his name did not ring a bell, and that he'd been managing the store since before it opened. Shortly before the attack, Crusius posted a manifesto that he called The Inconvenient Truth About Me to a controversial website, 8chan. This gives us the most informative look into what Patrick was thinking about before he committed one of the most horrific acts in U.S. history. 8chan was founded in 2013 and is a message board dedicated to extreme free speech and anonymity. Users set up their own discussion areas. There are hundreds of topic areas, but this site is most notorious for its POL board, short for politically incorrect. However, this site is mainly used for those with violent, racist, or otherwise hateful views. Crusius was not the first mass shooter to post a manifesto to 8chan. The terrorists responsible for recent shootings in Christchurch, New Zealand, and Poway, California, also posted racist and violent manifestos on 8chan. The community over time has become a cesspool of hate, where the users collaborate with each other, thus fueling each other, which motivates one another to go towards a hate crime. It is not known how often Crusius used the site, but what we do know is that he turned to the site to spread his ideas to like-minded individuals. In his post, where he shared the manifesto, he stated, "Do your part, spread this, brothers," and "Keep up the good fight." He frames these statements in a way that seems that he believed he was acting with a community goal in mind. In the first line of his manifesto, he states, "In general, I support the Christchurch shooting and his manifesto." He is describing the manifesto written by Brenton Tarrant that was posted on 8chan before the attack that killed 51 people and injured 49 in a shooting spree during Prayer Friday at two separate mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand. It's a hate-filled 74-page document that goes on to describe popular far-right conspiracies and how white Europeans are being deliberately replaced by non-white immigrants. Now, historically, these terrorist manifestos have never been an accurate depiction of either their belief system or planning that went into the attacks. The main intention of terrorist manifestos is not to let people understand how they became terrorists, it is to create new terrorists. I personally feel that this writing was one of the main inspirations to the shooting in El Paso. Patrick Crusius' manifesto differs from the Christchurch manifesto in many ways. In Crusius' writing, it is much more simplistic, and it seems as if he is trying to explain himself, at the same time trying to inspire others to fight with him. He goes on complaining how he doesn't have a future because of so-called race mixing, and how he was simply defending his country from cultural and ethnic replacement brought on by an invasion. In order to understand this so-called invasion, we need to understand what he was thinking about and observing when he made this statement. The population near his home in Collin County has more than doubled since 2000, to more than 1 million in 2018, according to U.S. Census data. The growth was driven in large by part the arrival of new businesses, including Toyota and Liberty Mutual, and it has come with increased diversity. As the county has undergone a business and housing boom, the white non-Hispanic population fell from 77% in 2000 to 56% in 2018, while the Hispanic population jumped from 10% of the county residents to 15%. The total number of Hispanic residents tripled in those years, as the total population surged across all demographics. This fact is important to understand in relation to what environment that Crusius was living in, because it became easy for him in a sick mind to blame his failures and lack of hope on the ever-changing culture that was occurring around him. However, even though the population around him was changing, what would make him hate the Hispanic community in such an appalling way? He states that the Hispanic community was not my target before I read The Great Replacement. The so-called Great Replacement theory originated in France, and its main proponents include the identitarian group Generation Identity, an organization that wants to preserve the ethnocultural identity globally. It is also known as white genocide. This is the increasingly popular alt-right conspiracy theory that the white race and the entirety of Western civilization are besieged by the combined forces of non-white migration and dwindling white birth rates, orchestrated by a multicultural global elite in an attempt to undermine the integrity of white life. It seems as he actually believed this conspiracy, thus creating a separate reality in his mind that differs from the one that you or I live in. In his writings, he was mainly concerned about the future and lack thereof. There are several times, 6 to be exact, that he talks about the future and how it is going to be a horrible place without an action. And this hopelessness is one of the major signs of depression, according to the American Psychological Association. In addition, it has been reported that many active shooters felt isolated, alone, and angry, lacked communication skills, and experienced resentment towards their victims prior to the onset of the violent attack, and that seems to be the case here. In his manifesto, Crusius states, "I didn't spend much time at all preparing for this attack. Maybe a month, probably less. I have to do this before I lose my nerve. I figure that an underprepared attack and a manifesto is better than no attack and no manifesto." He actually has an entire section in his manifesto describing the gear he was going to use. He goes on to describe that his weapon, the WASR-10, was not designed to shoot rounds quickly, stating that it massively overheats after about 100 shots fired in quick succession. However, he planned to overcome this by using heat-resistant gloves. Along with his weapon, he planned to use 8 M3 ammunition, a Russian-made hollow-point rifle round known for its ability to expand and fragment on impact, causing catastrophic wounds. He goes on to describe the round as a bullet unlike any other. He also explored the possibility to acquire an AR-15, but later states that the AR-15 is probably not the best gun for military applications, because this isn't a military application. After describing his weaponry, he makes the point that this will be a test which is more lethal, either its fragmentation or tumbling. According to several news sources, they state that he acquired his weapon about 6 weeks prior to the shooting. It seems to me that when he purchased the weapon, he had already had the attack in mind. Coincidentally, when he purchased the weapon, this was the same time that he moved out of his grandparents' house. I wonder if the move had an impact on him in terms of his anger leading up to the shooting. As an interesting turn of events, his mother called the police just weeks before the massacre because she was worried about her son owning an AK-style assault rifle. However, his mom states that she wasn't concerned that he posed a threat, but was more worried about his age, maturity level, and lack of experience handling such a firearm. She was transferred to a public safety officer, and he told her that he was legally allowed to buy a weapon. This is one of the most concerning facts to me, because I think she was a little more than concerned when she called the police. What sparked her to call the police, and not just do a simple Google search? This invokes me to ask the question, was there little more to her concern than just the fact that he purchased a rifle? With the little information given, I don't think we will ever know. But this seems rather odd that a mother would call the police on her own son for purchasing a rifle. Now, what would have caused him to choose a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, as his target? We know from his manifesto that he was targeting the Hispanic population, and El Paso is one of the largest border cities within a driving distance from his home. El Paso would have been the perfect target in his mind, because they have a very high Hispanic population, and he could make the drive in just one day. In fact, as of 2016, 80.7% of the population in El Paso, Texas, is Hispanic. According to Google Maps, El Paso was 651 miles away, and this is a 9-hour and 26-minute drive from his home in Allen, Texas. It seems as if he didn't have a direct target in mind when he traveled to El Paso. The police state that he was driving around and got lost in the city. During this time, one must assume that more than likely, he was driving around the city looking for a target. He later stopped at the Walmart because he was hungry. He reportedly entered the store unarmed and walked around for a bit. It was a Saturday morning, and the store was packed with people. In his manifesto, he states he was looking for a low-security target. In quotes, "Even though you might outgun a security guard or policeman, they likely beat you in armor, training, and numbers. Do not throw away your life on an unnecessarily dangerous target. If a target seems too hot, live to fight another day." While canvassing the store, He most likely noticed that this Walmart didn't have any armed security guards, and it was loaded with a ton of Hispanic people. In his sick, delusion-filled mind, must have been the perfect target since it wasn't too hot. At this point, he went back out to his vehicle and was thinking about the attack that he was about to do. He decided to put his plan into action, then begins getting ready for the attack. He goes on his phone and takes his pre-written manifesto and attempts to post it on 8chan stating, "Expletive. This is going to be expletive, but I cannot wait any longer. Do your part and spread this, brothers. Of course, only spread it if the attack is successful. I know that the media is going to try to frame me incorrectly, but y'all know the truth. I'm probably going to die today. Keep up the good fight." Now in his mind, there is no turning back. He knows by just making this post, he will most likely be reported or located by law enforcement, and he wants to put his plan into action. Time is no longer on his side. So he loads his extra magazines in his pockets, grabs his ear protection and his gun, and walks towards the Walmart. As he approaches the Walmart, he sees a Hispanic male exiting from his vehicle and opens fire. He continues moving among parked cars, blasting towards the front of the store, where there is a girls' soccer club fundraising, and shoots a few more innocent people. People are now running in every direction. He then enters the store and shoots every person he could get his sights on. Ultimately, he shoots 46 people, killing 22. It is not known why he stopped shooting. Maybe it was because he ran out of ammunition, or because he felt that he got enough people. But what we do know is that he went back into his car and left the scene. Within minutes, just a few blocks away from the Walmart, he exited his vehicle with his hands up and surrendered to a motorcycle police officer who was doing perimeter control of the scene and stated, "I am the shooter." This incident is one of the many mass shootings that occurred this year. The question is, and the purpose of this video is to learn more about these shooters, so we could try to find a way to prevent these incidents from happening. Is it gun control? Is it having more mental health treatment available? Or do police need to better track these individuals like Patrick Crusius? Or is it a combination of the three? That's why I'm looking for your input. Please let me know in the comments below. If this video is successful, I plan on making other videos about the background of other shooters to help people get a better look as to why someone would commit such a horrific act. In addition, I did my best to give you the most accurate depiction of the events. If you happen to find an error in my reporting, please let me know. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching.